Happy holidays, folks, and welcome to December, the holiday event of the channel where I explore the death and downfall of the DC Extended Universe. I upload a video every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I've been going through the films in release order. There are spoilers as I pick apart the movies as I see fit. So, if that sounds interesting to you, kick back, relax, grab a friend, snacks, whatever, because today we're talking about... So Aquaman starts off with his mother and father first meeting. Queen Atlanta was apparently forced into an arranged marriage and fled Atlantis. She got injured during the escape and washes up on shore of Arthur's father, Boba. He takes her inside of his lighthouse that he works at, he nurses her back to health, and the two of them end up falling in love and having Arthur. But peace doesn't last forever. The Atlanteans end up finding out where Atlanta's been hiding. She ends up getting into a fight with them and says that she has to leave in order to protect their family and vows that one day she'll come back once everything is settled down. Then we skip ahead a little bit. We see a child Arthur at an aquarium. He's talking to the fish, which this is so weird because in this scene we see that this aquarium has sharks and other fish all in the same tank, and it's like, sharks are predators. Wouldn't they just kill all the fish in the tank? That seems messed up. And if that was the point, and you just put all those fish in there to be eaten by the shark, that's messed up, dude. But anyway, Arthur's talking to all of these fish, and some bullies try and pick on him, which, don't people just talk to fish in general? Isn't that something that people do? People talk to pets, all the time. They talk to animals a lot. Is this weird? Is this bully-worthy material? I thought people just kind of did that, but whatever. So these bullies try to start picking on Arthur, and because he's in danger, his abilities kick in, and it calls all the fish to kind of protect him. And we have this really sick shot of Kid Arthur standing in front of all these fish swarmed around him, and it's just awesome. So then we skip ahead one more time, and now we're in the present. We got Jason Momoa, Arthur Curry, the Aquaman, doing his thing. Some pirates that are manned by Black Manta and his father are taking over a submarine, so Arthur shows up to save them. He jumps in, starts fighting all the pirates, beating them all down, and I just love that every single time he basically does anything in this, his guitar riff theme plays. It's just hilarious, but in the most badass way possible. So these guys aren't anything really of a threat, so he just deals with them lightly, and then Black Manta tries to 1v1 Arthur, but he fails miserably because he's nowhere near as strong as him. And then Arthur plans to just let them deal with escaping on their own, and as he's trying to leave, Black Manta's father is hell-bent on killing him, so he fires a rocket at him that ends up breaching a hole into the submarine. It starts flooding, and he gets trapped under rubble. Black Manta struggling to lift the missile canister, whatever the hell this thing is, off of his dad, and he asks Arthur for help. Arthur tells him that they're criminals. They killed innocent people. He doesn't have any mercy or empathy for them. They need to figure out how to escape themselves, and he leaves. So Black Manta's dad ends up dying, and Black Manta himself ends up gaining his grudge against Arthur. Now, I'm gonna stop here for a second. This is super weird because Black Manta is not the main antagonist of this film. He's the main antagonist of the second film that still hasn't come out yet, which I'm sure I'm gonna enjoy that, but this whole setup and interaction really makes you feel like Black Manta is going to be the villain of this movie, that Arthur not saving him was going to turn him into Black Manta. Because at this point, I keep referring to him as Black Manta, but he hasn't taken up that mantle yet. I just don't remember what his actual name is, so I just call him Black Manta. So he hasn't become the supervillain yet, but this is the beginning, his origin. This is why he hates Aquaman and wants to kill him, and it could have easily been avoided if Arthur would have just saved his dad's life. And it makes you feel like this is the conflict of the movie, that Arthur needs to learn that he should have saved him even though he was a villain, and now it's created his greatest enemy. But no, that's not the case. Black Manta is in the movie, but he's more of a side character. He's kind of like General Phasma in the new Star Wars trilogy. He's the guy that people are afraid of because he's in charge of all the little minions that are being sent after everybody, but at the end of the day, they're a bit player. They're not the big bad that you're worried about stopping. That's Kylo Ren. Or in Aquaman's case, it's King Orm, Arthur's half-brother that is trying to take over all of the seven seas and launch a war against mankind on land. After this, Arthur meets up with his dad. They go out for drinks, and while they're at the bar, there's this cute interaction between Arthur and these drunks at the bar. It originally starts with you thinking they're gonna have a fight, but then these guys are just like, nah bro, we're fans of Aquaman, you're super cool, can we have a selfie with you and some drinks? And it's just a really nice scene. I like it a lot. Like, it's totally fun. And this is the first time you learn that Arthur doesn't have a secret identity. The world knows that Arthur Curry is Aquaman. At least kind of. It kind of contradicts itself later on in the movie, where they have a few newscast shows of this guy talking about how Atlantis is real and Aquaman is an Atlantean. And like, if people are aware that Arthur Curry is Aquaman and this guy believes Atlantis is real, like, I don't understand why it's like weird for people to think that Atlantis is real. It's just a weird kind of thing that happens where this movie acts like Arthur is like this stealthy kind of hero that nobody knows, but then also at the same time people know exactly who he is because of everything that happened. So like, it's a little annoying to think about it, but the movie as a whole is just super fun. So it's more of a nitpick than it is a fatal flaw in my opinion, because it's one of the few that are in this movie. So following this scene, we see Arthur's brother, King Orm, the antagonist of the film, talking to another kingdom in the Seven Seas to try and get their help to form a massive army of all the kingdoms in order to siege the mainland and take over humanity for all the transgressions they've done against the ocean. And at first, this guy refuses, but then they get attacked by a submarine, which if you notice, this is the same submarine that Arthur had stopped earlier on in the film. Orm does a heroic thing, destroys the sub, and then he gains the approval of the king and their army. So now his plan has started in motion with him collecting all of the kingdoms to form the greatest army in Atlantean history to then take over the world. Then we see that he's actually working with Black Manta. He goes and pays him off for using the submarine that he told him to commandeer. He was a little upset, it was a little banged up, and he told him it's like, it wasn't because we messed up the job, it's because one of your people, the Aquaman, came up. And he's like, listen, I don't even want the money, I just want to kill Aquaman. And Orm has no interest in killing Arthur at this point in time, so he just leaves, and Black Manta is just kind of frustrated because, you know, he wants to kill Aquaman and he has no leads or weapons or anything that he can do to hunt him down and kill him. So then after this, it goes back to the bar sequence with Arthur and his father. Arthur's taking his drunk dad to the car, and then that's when Mera shows up. Now, this is a big contradiction between Batman v Superman and Justice League, is that Arthur knew what Atlantis was, he had been there, he was its protector, and he knew who Mera was. However, in this is like the first time that Arthur and Mera have ever met each other, so they're very much retconning his backstory, and I'm perfectly fine with that because I hate Justice League, so I like this movie, and I think this is a better origin than Arthur being in a weird position that he was in Justice League, because it didn't make sense what he was in Justice League. Arthur is the protector of Atlantis because he's its king, but in Justice League, he wasn't the king, but he was also its protector. He knew about Atlantis, but he didn't like it. And then he was still Aquaman doing his stuff and being a superhero. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, they took out the element that made all of these parts connect, and because that element was missing, it made his entire backstory nonsensical. So in this, they reshaped it and put those elements back where they're supposed to be, so everything makes sense. Arthur hasn't been to Atlantis. He doesn't know who Mera is, so he's not their protector. He does work in the ocean to save people and operates as a superhero, but not specifically for them, and I think this works significantly better. So Mera basically gives him a rundown. She's like, your brother's trying to take over the world. I need you to help me stop him. And he's like, no, if he comes to the surface, I'll kick his ass, but I'm not going to Atlantis and becoming king so that this whole plan will stop. Figure it out on your own. So then he leaves, and as he's leaving, a huge tidal wave comes in and washes up on shore, taking him in his father's car and tossing it around. He tries to save his dad, and thankfully Mera is there and saves him for him. And then Arthur is like, what just happened here? Mera says that this is a warning shot from Orm. He sent all of the garbage and boats that were in the ocean to the mainland. He washed them ashore to every beach as like a warning for humanity to stay out of the ocean. So Arthur then agrees after Mera saved his father. He's like, okay, I'll go with you to Atlantis to deal with Orm. And then we get like a bit of a flashback showing Arthur training for the first time with Willem Dafoe, who plays the character Volko, who is basically Arthur's Merlin in this story. So he shows him like how to swim properly, he shows him how to see underwater, and I really love the visuals in this. Like, it has a very much Tron feel, that everything underwater that's Atlantean is all like neon based, so it's very similar to how like the real world is the real world in Tron, but then when they go to the grid, everything's all neon and lit up and it makes the city look cool. It's the same thing with Atlantis. Every fish and every building down here and ship has like a neon light on it, so it looks super cool. I like that a lot. Makes the movie extremely stylized. It's probably the most stylish movie in the DC extended universe. But anyway, so after this little scene, we go back to the present. Arthur goes down to Atlantis. He meets up with Volko, and him, Mera, and Volko all have a conversation about how he needs to get the legendary trident of the first king of Atlantis, King Atlan. And I like this because a personal gripe that I had that I didn't mention in Justice League is that Arthur has this trident, and in this movie they bring it up saying it's his mother's trident, and that's why he uses it. But like, I don't know. I personally like the Poseidon-looking golden three-pronged trident that he uses most of the time. I just think it looks cooler in my opinion, so I'm happy that this movie is about him going to acquire that specific weapon. So they're having this conversation, and then they get interrupted by an explosion. They're attacked by basically like border patrol that are here to arrest Arthur because he infiltrated Atlantis. Arthur tries to fight back. He loses. He gets captured. He's imprisoned, and he's brought in front of his brother Orm. Orm taunts Arthur about coming down here. He tells him to leave and blah, blah, blah. And then Arthur ends up challenging Orm to a one-on-one duel for the throne of Atlantis, which is exactly what Orm wanted. Because if he defeats his brother, who offers the same kind of claim to the throne, then everyone will accept him as the king. And following this, Arthur's gearing up for his battle with Orm, and Willem Dafoe comes in to talk to him. He's like, do you really think you're ready for this fight? It seems like your brother's baiting you into this. How could you be so stupid and let this happen? And Arthur's just like, nah, man, I got this. I know how to fight. You trained me. He's like, yeah, on land. Orm grew up in the ocean. He's lived here his entire life. He's gonna beat the bricks off you. He's like, no, I have this. So then we get a little bit of a flashback showcasing when Willem Dafoe trained Arthur as a teenager. And I need to bring this up. This kid isn't doing the best job as teenage Arthur. He kind of reminds me a lot of like Jacob's performance by Taylor Lautner in the Twilight films. Like, it's just, it's not the best, but it serves its purpose. We get the information that we need. This is the first time Arthur learned that his mother, Queen Atlanta, had died, and that's why she never returned to the surface after vowing that she would come back. So then we go back to the present, and we see that Arthur is holding on to all of this resentment and anger towards Atlantis because they killed his mother. Then we see Arthur and Orm come face to face right before they fight, and we learn now that Mera is in the same position that Queen Atlanta was back in the day. She's being forced to marry Orm against her will, and Arthur empathizes with her because that's what happened to his mother. Then Orm and Arthur have a heart-to-heart. The two of them are saying that they don't really want to kill each other, that they feel like they're brothers. Arthur is like, hey, listen, you know, I've always wanted to find you and show you how much I love you and show you that we're not alone, that we're in this together, but I didn't realize you were going to grow up to be such an asshole, so now I've got to kick your ass. And even Orm shows a bit of empathy to his own brother, saying that he doesn't want to kill him and gives him one more chance to just forfeit the fight and go back to the surface. But the two of them can't give up on what they value, so the fight ensues. And Orm is beating the bricks off of Arthur. Arthur gives a bit of a stance here, but he's still losing because, as Volko told him, he can't exactly compare to Orm in sea-based combat. And I just love everything here. This arena looks sick. All the Atlanteans are here cheering the fight. I love this stupid little moment where you see the stats for both Orm and Arthur, which are heavily biased because they're made by Atlanteans that love Orm. We have this weird octopus drumming with like 8 different drums. Like, everything about this sequence is just so awesome, and the way that James Wan directs the water movements is just so sick. I love everything about this. It's just beautiful. So the fight culminates with Arthur losing. His mother's trident gets broken by Orm, but right before Orm gets to kill him, Mera ends up showing up in a ship. She shoots at Orm and then tells Arthur to get in. The two of them fly off, they escape Atlantis, and then this begins their quest to go find the Golden Trident. They end up traveling to the Sahara Desert after a little cute moment where Arthur summons a whale to eat them like Monstro ate Pinocchio and Geppetto in that, and they travel to the Sahara. They get there, this is where the movie kind of gets a little fidgety with like what happens. They kind of arrive in the middle of nowhere in the Sahara Desert, but then they find a guy in an airplane. You see a plane fly overhead in the shot where they arrive, but it's just kind of odd. They're just there, they get a plane, they travel off. Mera jumps out of the plane because they're at the location that it says their beacon is telling them King Atlan's tomb is. They jump down there, they start looking around. Arthur and Mera get to bond a bit. Arthur's telling Mera that she can't hate the surface because she's never been there and she hasn't really seen what it all has to offer, and she rebuttals saying that Arthur feels the same way about Atlantis, and he kind of gets frustrated because he knows that she's right. And eventually, after the two of them are bickering for a bit, they end up stumbling upon the tomb of King Atlan, and they learn the legend of the trident, and they learn the next clue in their adventure, which leads them to Sicily. Arthur and Mera have a cute date when they arrive there. Mera ends up eating a rose because she doesn't know what they are. Arthur takes a bite on one as well because he likes her and doesn't want her to feel weird or outcasted. And I really like the scene here where this little girl is standing at the fountain and Mera gives her the coin that Arthur gave her, and she throws into the wishing fountain, and then Mera uses her powers to show the little girl the water show. I thought that was really cool just because, like, I like superheroes interacting with their civilians. It's the reason why people love Spider-Man. He interacts with the people, so seeing this little scene was really cool. Then we see Arthur and Mera trying to figure out the next piece of the puzzle. Arthur is actually very knowledgeable in this sequence because they're in an area with a bunch of kings from Italy, and they need to figure out which king they put the piece of the puzzle that they received in Atlan's tomb. They got like a glass bottle that has a map written inside of it, but they need to put it in the right statue to learn which way they need to go. And Arthur figures it out because he's very knowledgeable about kings. His dad taught him a lot about kings and history of Earth, since he was supposed to be king of Atlantis and inherit his mother's throne as a way to keep close to her. I like that a lot. It gives depth to his backstory and it makes sense in regards to his character. So he's very knowledgeable about this instead of being the punch first, ask questions later type, and figures out the next piece of the puzzle. They learn where they need to go, but before they get to leave, they get attacked by Black Manta and Orm's army. You see, Orm hired Black Manta after Arthur and Mera escaped Atlantis to go and hunt them down and kill them. He gave Black Manta a bunch of Atlantean tech that he paints black, modifies, and creates his iconic Black Manta armor and takes on that name. So the two of them get into a fight. Black Manta's kind of getting the upper hand on Arthur because all of his new tech can actually do damage to him as opposed to the normal human weapons that weren't strong enough to cut through Arthur's skin before, and Mera is running away and fighting all of the Atlantean soldiers chasing after her. So the both of them are kind of struggling throughout the fight. Arthur manages to get the upper hand and defeat Black Manta, but he gets very wounded himself. So Mera ends up taking Arthur, she steals a boat, and they escape and head towards their next destination. Arthur wakes up and they're just about at their destination when they get attacked by the Trench, one of the other hidden kingdoms of Atlantis. So the Trench, they mentioned earlier on in the film that the Trench are basically mindless monsters. They regressed backwards in history instead of evolving like a lot of other Atlanteans, and now they're just mindless beasts that kill and eat whatever comes near them. So now Arthur and Mera are trying to fight for their lives to escape, and they learn that the Trench, since they come from the bottom of the ocean, are used to darkness. So there's a bunch of flares. Arthur and Mera grab them, they dive into the ocean, and it leads to a really sick shot of them flying through the water with the flares creating this visual of all the Trench army trying to kill them, and it's just awesome. So they travel through, they manage to make it to the hidden world, the hidden sea in which the tomb of King Atlan is and where the trident actually is located. And once they arrive there, they realize that Arthur's mother survived. She managed to find the same location. However, she wasn't able to escape due to the fact that you need the trident of King Atlan in order to open the path back out. You can get in, but unless you're worthy, you can't get out. She tried multiple times over the past 20 years, they say, trying to get the trident, but it always failed. So Arthur reconnects with his mother. Him and Mera are perfectly fine now that they're taken care of, and now Arthur has to go off and face against the beast that protects the, I was about to say sword, but it's a trident. So he has to go face off against the beast that protects the trident. Instead of fighting it to the death, Arthur ends up using his ability to talk to fish, and he speaks to it, and she ends up letting him try to grab the trident. Arthur then is proven worthy, he grabs the trident, and then it cuts back to King Orm. Orm has now taken over most of the sea. I skipped over this earlier, but he ends up killing the king of one of the other kingdoms of the sea and takes control of their army. He now goes to the final kingdom to take their army so that he can truly become the Ocean Master and then take over the surface world with his war. But the Brine Kingdom, as they're called, refuse, and they start a war with Orm and the other Atlantean armies. And while this is happening, that's when Arthur arrives. He comes with a giant monster that was protecting the trident. He now has the trident as well as a new armor set. And listen, I'm the contrarian here. I know people have clowned this costume time and time again. I don't care. This Aquaman costume is peak. This costume is fire. I don't care that it looks all bedazzly on the chest and everything like that. It looks fire. I don't care what anyone has to say. This costume is peak Aquaman, peak comic book costumes. It's fire. Suck a toe if you don't believe me. All right. Anyway, so Arthur arrives with his monster in tow, as well as the trench army, because he now can control the sea with the power of the trident. And I clowned Superman about this in the Man of Steel video, so I gotta clown Arthur about this. Superman in that movie ended up tearing through the city, causing a bunch of damage, and in this, Arthur kills a ton of Atlanteans that are perfectly innocent. Because, like, Orm's the bad guy here. Everyone here is just following orders. They're just soldiers that their king told them to fight, so they're fighting. But, like, Arthur's just tearing through all these people, killing all these Atlanteans, and I'm just like, dude, they're just following orders. They're just good people that are listening to their king. Like, I don't think you need to kill them. Maybe just incapacitate them, scare them, something. I don't know. Like, I don't think you need to kill all these people because, like, they're not bad guys. Orm's just the bad guy. He's just the only problem here. But, you know, he rampages with the monster, destroys everything. There's wars happening. People are dying. And it's like, okay, I guess. I mean, this is kind of a problem with a lot of movies where people take over, like, a government establishment or a kingdom, is that you'll have the soldiers who are portrayed as, like, evil, maniacal bad guys, or, like, they're just faceless because they always wear a helmet or something like that. Again, kind of like the stormtroopers in Star Wars. Like, we see in the new trilogy that Finn was a stormtrooper who was like, I don't like this. I was kidnapped as a kid. I was forced to become a stormtrooper, but, like, I didn't want to be a stormtrooper, and then he leaves. But then, like, they still kill a ton of stormtroopers, and it's like, but, like, aren't all stormtroopers like Finn? Weren't they just guys that were kidnapped and forced to be stormtroopers? Like, that doesn't seem right that you just kill all of them. Same thing here. Is like, all these Atlanteans are just people following the orders of their government, and they're being killed for it. That's just not fair. But anyway, Arthur then gets into a fight with King Orm, and I really like the fact that their final battle takes place on land, whereas their first fight that Arthur lost took place in the ocean. So now Orm is in Arthur's element. The two of them have a sick fight on top of the ship, in which Arthur defeats Orm the same way he defeated him. He breaks his trident and the fight's over. But unlike what Orm was going to do and kill Arthur, Arthur shows mercy and says that he doesn't want to kill him because at the end of the day, it's still his brother. He doesn't want to kill his brother. The bloodshed needs to stop. So he doesn't kill him. Their mother comes back. She tells Orm that he was misguided, that his racist father taught him that the surface was a separate world that should be seen lesser than, and that he shouldn't have thought that way, that the earth, the land, I should say, and the ocean are one, making one planet that they all live on. And then Arthur becomes king. He chants, everyone gets happy. Him and Mera get together. I forgot to mention, like, a few minutes prior to the final battle with Orm, Arthur and Mera have this really cool kiss during this, like, awesome shot where, like, the war is happening in the background. It just looks awesome. This whole movie looks dope. But now Arthur's defeated Orm. All the kingdoms of Atlantis are one. He's the king of Atlantis. And then the movie ends with Arthur narrating, showing that his parents got back together. Atlanta went back and met up with his dad. They have a very wholesome moment. They're happy that they get to be together again. And then we get this sick ending to the movie. Like, bro, this shit is fire.
Son of the land, the king of the seas. I am the protector of the deep. I am Aquaman.
Bro, that final shot goes crazy. I love it. And then we get a post-credit scene showcasing the setup for Aquaman of the Lost Kingdom, where Black Manta has been rescued, he's alive, and he plans to kill Aquaman. So I'm very excited for that movie. That's going to be dope. I love this movie. And it's just like, I don't really have much to say about this one, because, like, the movie's just super solid. There isn't really much to complain about in this movie. Like, it just rules, man. Go check it out for yourself. It's on Max right now. Just go watch it. But anyway, that's all I have to say about Aquaman. I'll be back tomorrow for another video. So remember, folks, I'm the Innocent Villain, your instant approved villainous. Socials down below if you want to yell at me, like, comment, all that YouTuber stuff. And I'll catch you next time.